The stale airport air tasted like duty-free perfume, and exhaustion as I shuffled through the terminal gate. The weight of my duffel bag a familiar anchor against the dizzying whirl of civilian life. 12 months. A year of sand that got everywhere. Mres that all tasted vaguely of despair. And a longing so deep it carved a hollow beneath my ribs. That hollow had a name, Paulina. My Paulina. The woman whose picture kept me sane through mortar fire and mind-numbing patrols. Whose letters were lifelines written in purple ink on scented paper. They called us heroes. Right now, I just felt displaced. The fluorescent lights buzzed loud. The colors were too bright. Civilians moved with a frantic energy I couldn't comprehend. All I wanted was the quiet of our apartment, the smell of her lavender shampoo, the warmth of her curled into my side. Home. Finally. I scanned the crowd near baggage claim, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my sternum. Where was she? My eyes darted, searching for the cascade of dark hair. The bright blue eyes that could stop my breath. Nothing. A cold prickle started at the back of my neck. Maybe traffic. I checked my phone, the cheap burner I'd used downrange, now connected to stateside service. No messages, no missed calls, just a stark, empty screen. The cold prickle spread. Deployment does things to you. It makes you vigilant, paranoid even. You learn to read the absence of things, the absence of sound before an ambush, the absence of footprints where there should be some. This absence, the absence of Paulina at my homecoming, screamed louder than any incoming round. My gut, the one that had kept me alive through 3 tour, twisted into a hard knot. I grabbed my sea bag off the carousel, the weight settling heavily on my shoulder. Okay, Jake, don't spiral. There's an explanation. Maybe she was sick, had car trouble, but wouldn't she call? Wouldn't she try? The image of her, tucked away in our bed, flickered in my mind, a sanctuary it clung to through countless nights. Now, it felt fragile, like smoke. I hailed a cab. The ride through familiar streets felt alien. Everything looked the same, yet completely different. The silence in the cab was oppressive. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, taking in the short haircut, the fatigues. "Welcome home, soldier," he offered quietly. "Thanks," I mumbled, my voice rough from disuse and the knot of anxiety tightening in my throat. My eyes were glued to the passing storefronts, landmarks counting down the blocks to our apartment building. Our building. I overpaid the driver, mumbled another thanks, and hauled my bags towards the entrance. The familiar buzz of the foyer door sounded abnormally loud. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor stretched into an eternity. Each ding of a passing floor felt like a hammer blow. My palms were slick with sweat against the nylon strap of my duffel. I stood before apartment 3B. Home. I fumbled for my keys, the familiar brass one cool against my fingers. For a second, I hesitated. That feeling of wrongness was a physical pressure now, a weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. "Just open the door, Jake. See her. Hold her. It'll be okay." The lock turned smoothly. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Not lavender. Something else. Musky, unfamiliar. Expensive cologne. And stale pizza. The living room was dim. Blinds drawn against the afternoon sun. It was messy. Unusually messy. Cushions askew on the sofa. A blanket tangled on the floor. 2 empty beer bottles on the coffee table. Not my brand. My duffel bag slid from my shoulder and thudded onto the floor. The sound was obscenely loud in the quiet apartment. "Paulina." My voice sounded strange, tight. "Babe, you here?" Silence. I walked further in, my boots echoing on the hardwood. The kitchen was worse. Dishes piled high in the sink. Takeout containers overflowing the trash can. More unfamiliar beer bottles. A half-eaten bag of chips. I knew Paulina hated spicy lime. Something she always wrinkled her nose at. Then I saw it, sitting on the counter, next to the overflowing fruit bowl that held only a single, sad-looking banana. A care package box. My care package box. The one I'd painstakingly packed for Paulina months ago, right before a particularly hairy op. It was supposed to be a piece of home, a reminder of me. Love packed into cardboard. But it wasn't sealed. The tape had been ripped off hastily. The flaps were bent back, and it was empty. No, not quite. My feet carried me towards it, moving on autopilot. The cold dread in my gut had solidified into ice. I reached the counter and looked inside the box. There were things in there, just not the things I'd sent. Instead of the gourmet coffee beans from her favorite local roastery, which she'd paid a small fortune to ship, there was a crumpled bag of a cheap, generic brand. The hand-knitted scarf my mom had made for her, in her favorite teal color, was gone. In its place, shoved carelessly to one side, was a hideously bright orange beanie with a sports team logo I didn't recognize. The carefully chosen books, a new release by her favorite author, and a beautiful hardcover on botanical art were absent. Instead, there was a tattered paperback thriller, its cover featuring a muscle-bound dude clutching a gun, the kind Paulina always mocked. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. This wasn't right. This wasn't her. I started pulling things out, my movements jerky, desperate. The artisan chocolates from that Belgian place downtown, gone. Replaced by a half-empty bag of peanut M and Miss. Peanuts. Paulina was deathly allergic to peanuts. She wouldn't have them in the house. Ever. The small, framed photo of us from our trip to the coast. Missing. A ticket stub for a movie I'd never heard of lay crumpled in the corner. A movie that had premiered after I deployed. And then, at the very bottom, partially hidden under the awful beanie men's clothing, a pair of thick, grey wool socks, not my size, brand new, and a protein powder shaker bottle, bright blue, engraved on the side in blocky letters, Marcus. Marcus, the name echoed in the sudden, terrible silence of the apartment. It wasn't just the unfamiliar cologne smell, it was his socks, his shaker bottle. In my care package box, the box had filled with love for my wife. The world tilted. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles white, staring at that name. Marcus. Who the hell was Marcus? And why were his things stuffed into the box meant for Paulina? Why was his protein shaker here, in our kitchen? Why the peanut M and Ms she couldn't touch? Why the book shed hate? Why the beanie that looked like traffic cone vomit? The pieces, jagged and ugly, slammed together in my mind with the force of an I'd. The absence at the airport, the unfamiliar mess, the alien smells, the wrong snacks, the missing tokens of us. And now Marcus. She hadn't just forgotten to pick me up. She hadn't just been busy. She'd been here, with him, in our home, eating pizza, drinking beer that wasn't mine, reading his stupid book, wearing his stupid hat, using my care package box as a freaking storage bin for her boyfriend's gym junk. The betrayal wasn't a slow creep, it was a sucker punch to the soul. The hollow beneath my ribs, the one filled with her image for a year, cracked wide open, flooding with a cold, corrosive rage mixed with a grief so profound it stole my breath. I'd been dodging bullets, sleeping in the dirt, missing her with every fibre of my being, clinging to the thought of this coming home to her as the only thing that made the horror bearable. And all that time she'd been here. With Marcus, I let out a sound, something between a choked gasp and a wounded animal's whimper. My vision blurred, hot tears pricking at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. The ice in my gut was replaced by a white-hot fury. I wanted to put my fist through the wall. I wanted to scream until my lungs bled. I wanted to find Marcus and know that waylay a dishonorable discharge, or worse. I forced air into my lungs, deep, ragged breaths. Think, Jake. Think. I looked around the apartment again. Really looked, with new eyes. Every detail screamed the truth. The extra-large hoodie draped over the back of the couch, definitely not mine. The unfamiliar brand of deodorant on the bathroom counter. The second toothbrush, electric and blue, next to hers. How long had Marcus been making himself comfortable in my life? The care package box. It was the smoking gun. The sheer, brazen carelessness of it. She hadn't even bothered to hide his things properly. Had she forgotten about the box entirely? Or had she just stopped caring enough to even conceal the evidence? The utter disrespect of it was staggering. I picked up the shaker bottle again. Marcus. I traced the engraved letters with a trembling finger. Who was he? A co-worker, a neighbor, some guy from the gym shed mentioned casually in a letter months ago. The letters, I thought back. Had there been a shift? Less detail. More talk about being busy with work. It chalked it up to the strain of separation. Now, every vague phrase, every missed video call, felt like another deliberate lie. The rage warred with a crushing sense of foolishness. How could I have been so blind, so trusting? I'd sent her my pay, my love letters, my care packages, while she was sharing our bed, our home, our life with someone else. The image of them, laughing on our couch, eating pizza from our plates, using my care package box as a glorified trash bin, it was unbearable. I needed air. I needed to get out of this suffocating tomb of betrayal, leaving my bags where they'd fallen. I stumbled back out the door, slamming it shut behind me with a force that rattled the frame in the hallway. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. The bright afternoon sun felt harsh, accusatory. People passed me, smiling, living their normal lives, oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in mine. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I fished it out, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The screen lit up with a picture of Paulina, smiling, her eyes bright. The sight of it, now, felt like a physical blow. The caller had confirmed it. Paulina less than 3. For a long moment, I just stared at it, vibrating in my hand. The ringtone, a song we'd both loved, suddenly sounded tinny and false. The rage surged again, hot and demanding. I wanted to answer, to scream down the line, to demand answers, to unleash the torrent of pain and fury boiling inside me. But something stopped me. The cold, calculating part that had kept me alive in combat kicked in. Don't give her the satisfaction. Don't let her hear you break. I silenced the call. Then, with deliberate, icy precision, I powered the phone off completely. Let her wonder. Let her feel a fraction of the uncertainty, the dread, the absence I'd felt at the airport. Let her look at her own phone and see nothing. I kept walking, aimless, the rhythmic thud of my boots on the pavement the only anchor in the storm. My mind raced. Where could I go? My parents lived hours away. My buddies, most were still deployed, or scattered across the country. The VFW hall. The thought of walking into a place filled with brothers in arms, carrying this shame, this humiliation, no, I couldn't. I found myself outside a small, nondescript motel a few blocks from the base entrance. It looked cheap and slightly seedy. Perfect. I booked a room for a week, paying cash from the deployment stash I still carried. The clerk barely looked up, handing me a key attached to a large, garish plastic fob. The room was exactly what I expected, dim, smelling faintly of disinfectant and stale cigarettes, with a worn bedspread and a flickering fluorescent light in the bathroom. I dropped onto the edge of the stiff mattress, my head in my hands. The silence pressed in, thick and heavy. The images wouldn't stop. The care package box, the engraved shaker, the messy apartment, Paulina's face when she realized I knew. What now? Confrontation was inevitable. But how? When? And what about Marcus? A part of me, the trained, lethal part, craved a violent resolution. But the uniform I still wore, the oath he'd taken, held me back. Barely. Sleep was impossible. I lay on the scratchy sheets, staring at the water-stained ceiling, replaying the last year. Every letter, every call, every whispered "I love you" before a comms blackout. Had it all been a lie? Had she started seeing Marcus before I even left? Or had the loneliness crept in later? Did it even matter? The result was the same. The betrayal was absolute. The next few days passed in a blur of numbness and simmering rage. I lived off vending machine snacks and lukewarm coffee from the motel lobby. I avoided the base. I avoided people. I turned my phone on once, just long enough to see dozens of missed calls and frantic texts from Paulina, escalating from "Where are you?" to "Are you okay?" to "Jake, please talk to me," to the final, desperate "I can explain." I powered it off again. Explain. How could she possibly explain stuffing her boyfriend's socks into the box that held my heart? I knew I had to face it. I couldn't hide in this motel room forever. I needed my things. I needed closure. Justice. I wasn't sure, but I needed to see her, to look her in the eye. I chose a time I knew she'd be home from work. Late afternoon. I walked back to the apartment building, the weight of my dread heavier than any rucksack. The familiar foyer felt like enemy territory now. The elevator ride was a descent into hell. I stood outside 3 billion again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I knocked, firmly. 3 sharp raps that echoed in the hallway. Silence from within. Then, the sound of hesitant footsteps. The lock clicked. The door opened. Polina stood there. She looked different. Beautiful, still, but tired. Her eyes were wide, red-rimmed, filled with a mixture of shock, guilt, and fear. She was wearing an old t-shirt of mine, the one she always slept in. The sight of it, now, felt like another knife twist. "Jake," she breathed, her voice trembling. "Oh God, Jake, where have you been?" I was so worried. "I went to the airport, I swear I did, but I got the time wrong. There was a mix-up with the flight info online. And then I couldn't find you." The words tumbled out in a frantic, unconvincing rush. Her eyes darted past me, down the hall, anywhere but meeting mine directly. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at her, letting the silence stretch, letting her feel the full weight of my presence, my knowledge. I saw the exact moment her rehearsed excuse hit the wall of my stony silence. Her frantic energy faltered. Her gaze finally met mine, and the fear in them deepened. "Jake," she whispered, her voice small. "Say something, please." I stepped forward, forcing her to take a step back into the apartment. I closed the door behind me. The familiar space felt poison now. I scanned the living room. It was tiddier than before, but not perfect. The extra-large hoodie was gone. The unfamiliar beer bottles were cleared. A half-hearted attempt at damage control. My eyes went straight to the kitchen counter. The care package box was gone. "Where is it?" My voice was low, rough, devoid of any emotion but cold intensity. Where is what?" Polina stammered, wrapping her arms around herself protectively. "The box, Polina," I said, each word clipped and hard. "The care package I sent you. The one you used to store your boyfriend's gym clothes." Her face went deathly pale. All the blood drained away, leaving her looking ghostly. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes widened impossibly further, pure terror replacing the guilt. She took another step back, bumping against the edge of the sofa. Jake," she started, her voice barely a whisper. "Marcus," I stated flatly, cutting her off. "Who is Marcus?" "Polina." I took another step towards her. "The guy whose protein shaker you kept in the box I packed for you. The guy whose socks were stuffed in with what was left of the things I sent. The guy who likes spicy lime chips and peanut M&Ms. The guy who leaves his crappy paperbacks and ugly hats lying around my apartment." Each question landed like a blow. She flinched, tears welling and spilling over, streaking down her cheeks. She shook her head mutely, unable to form words, trapped by the undeniable evidence of her betrayal. "How long?" I demanded, my voice rising slightly, the icy controls starting to crack, revealing the molten fury beneath. "How long has Marcus been sleeping in my bed while I was sleeping in the damn desert?" "Jake, please," she sobbed, collapsing onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. "It wasn't like that. It just happened. I was so lonely. You were gone for so long, and Marcus was just there. He was nice. He listened nice." The word exploded out of me. He was nice. So nice you moved him into my home. So nice you let him pour through the things I sent you. So nice you couldn't even be bothered to meet your own husband when he came home from a war zone. I was shouting now, the rage finally breaking free, filling the room, bouncing off the walls she'd shared with him. "Do you have any idea what I went through, what I saw? And the only thing that kept me going, the only thing, was the thought of coming home to you. To this," I gestured wildly around the apartment, the symbol of everything that was now ruined. "And I come back to find Marcus, his stink everywhere, his junk in the box meant for you." She was crying uncontrollably now, great heaving sobs that shook her shoulders. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jake. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. I never meant to hurt you. I love you. Love me." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound devoid of any humor. You have a freaking funny way of showing it, Polina. You don't love me. You love the idea of me. The dependable soldier sending money home, the safe option, until someone nice and convenient showed up. I took a step closer, looming over her, where she cowered on the sofa. Where is he now? Her. Marcus, did you warn him the husband was back? Did you tell him to clear out his shaker bottle? She just shook her head, crying harder, unable to speak. The sight of her, broken and guilty, should have stirred pity. All I felt was disgust and a profound, soul-crushing weariness. The fight drained out of me, as suddenly as it had surged, leaving me cold and empty. Get out, I said, my voice suddenly quiet, flat, final. She looked up, startled, her tear-streaked face confused. What? Get out, I repeated, each word measured and heavy. Pack a bag. Go to Marcus. Go to your mom. Go to hell. I don't care. But get out of my apartment. Now. Jake, please, she pleaded, scrambling to her feet. We can talk about this. We can fix this. I'll end it with Marcus, I swear. It was nothing. Just a stupid thing. It wasn't nothing, I said, my voice dangerously calm. It was everything. It was my home. It was my trust. It was the last year of my life. Pack your things and leave. I turned my back on her. I couldn't look at her anymore. I heard her stifled sobs, the sound of her moving around the bedroom, haphazardly throwing things into a suitcase. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring blankly at the wall where our wedding photo used to hang. It was gone, replaced by some generic abstract print. Marcus's taste, no doubt. It took her less than 20 minutes. She wheeled a small suitcase into the living room, her eyes puffy and desperate. Jake keys, I said, holding out my hand without turning around. I heard the jingle as she placed them in my palm. Her fingers brushed mine, cold and trembling. I closed my fist around the metal, the edges biting into my skin. I love you, she whispered, one last time, the words hanging pathetically in the charged air. I didn't respond. I didn't turn. I just stood there, a statue carved from ice and betrayal. I heard the soft click of the door opening, the hesitant pause, and then the final, hollow thud as it closed behind her. Silence descended, heavier than before. The silence of an empty apartment, the silence of a broken life. I was alone, truly alone. The hollow beneath my ribs wasn't filled with longing anymore. It was a vast, echoing cavern filled only with the ashes of trust and the engraved name Marcus seared onto my mind. I walked slowly to the kitchen. The care package box wasn't in the trash. She must have hidden it before she left. Or maybe Marcus took it. I didn't care. The evidence was burned into my memory. I opened the trash can, the one overflowing with takeout containers. Nestled among the greasy cardboard was the empty bag of peanut M&Ms. I stared at it, the bright yellow bag of final, mocking symbol of her disregard, her carelessness, her betrayal. I picked it up, crushed it in my fist. The sound of the thin plastic crumpling was loud in the stillness. Then I dropped it back into the trash. There was no satisfaction in it, only a profound, weary emptiness. I turned and walked back into the empty living room. My gaze fell on my duffel bag, still lying where I'd dropped it days ago, a lonely island in the middle of the floor. It contained everything I owned that mattered. My uniforms, my dog tags, a few letters, her letters, the ones filled with lies. The journey wasn't over. There would be paperwork, divorce, explaining this mess to my finding a new place to live, untangling a life that had been violently shredded. But for now, in the suffocating silence of the apartment that was no longer a home, surrounded by the invisible ghosts of Polina and Marcus, I just stood there, a soldier who had survived the war zone, only to find the deepest wounds waiting for him at home. The homecoming trap had sprung, and the casualty was everything I thought I was fighting for. The only sound was the frantic beating of my own heart against the ruins.